Do you ever get this stitching after you've been sewing? It's very annoying, isn't it? Look at that horrible tension. One of those horrible loops that you certainly don't want to be seeing on your lovely sewing item. So I'm just going to go through a few things that you need to be looking out for when you're sewing on your sewing machine to stop this from happening. So I'm just going to go over to camera 1. Now I've got two of my machines here. I've got this Brother because this is a top loader, and then I've got my lovely Bet Benina because she's a front loader, because there's a couple of things which are slightly different which I wanted to show you. But first of all, we're going to talk about tension. That is the machine, not yours physically, even though I'm sure if you've just stitched a lovely lot of stitching on your garment and you have that lovely stitching, your tension is quite high, I'm sure. Now, you've got your dial at the top. Now, the dial here might not be there, it might be here, like on my Benina, but this is your tension dial. Now, you really don't need to. You really change this a lot if you're not, you're working with basic cottons. But if you've been stitching your piece of fabric here, now that normally is on around about, my Benina's on 5 generally because it has a red mark there, and it stays on that tension. But some machines are about 4, so it's between 4 and 5, the tension. Oops, a daisy. There we go. Right, so when you've machined down your fabric down there, now if you looked at the top of the fabric at that stitching and the problem looked awful from the top, that means there's a problem underneath. There's a problem with your bobbin, okay? If I stitched down there and I flipped it over and the problem was underneath, that means there's a problem on the top. So it's the opposite to what you think. If the problem's on the top of the fabric, it means there's a problem with your bobbin. If there's a problem underneath your fabric, there's a problem with the top of the machine, okay? So there's a few things you need to look at. One, that it's thread. Lots of people use the wrong thread. I love Gutermann. I'm a Gutermann lover. I don't know if the camera's going to... So I love Gutermann. It's a really lovely fine thread, and that's just my favourite brand. Okay, my machine, my Bet, she still will use the Moon thread, which is obviously the cheaper thread. But if you've got an expensive machine, some machines kind of spit it out and say, I'm sorry, but I need a good quality thread. So you've got to, you've got to listen to your sewing machine. And unfortunately, if you have an expensive sewing machine, it will only like the expensive thread. Now, if you have threaded up, make sure that you've threaded up. The Gutermann is on the top and it's on the bobbin as well. So you've got the consistency of the top and bottom being the same quality thread. Don't go and pick any old random bobbin, because you might have a cheap thread in there. And so, you've got to listen, you've got to think what you're putting in your sewing machine to stop those little things happening, yeah? Also, troubleshooting. If you've had a problem, if you've been stitching a lot and suddenly, you had a bit of a jamming motion going on, and your needle might have accidentally got a little bent or a little nick in it, and you can't physically see it by the eye, but your machine knows. It's not stupid, it knows that there's something wrong with that needle, so check your needle, okay? Next thing, when it comes to threading up, each machine has it. There's a hook here, okay? Now on this Brother, you can't actually, when I move my dial, you can just see the little hook there going up and down. But if I come over to my Benina here, can you see that moving up and down? Now that's my hook. Now you've got to, the thread obviously goes from the right to the left and hooks over. Now after a majority of sewing, you might have been sewing for an hour and all of a sudden Paul Daniels comes in, and those of a certain age will know who I mean, and he unhooks that. So you could have merrily been sewing along and suddenly that tension is not on that hook, so you get that horrible stitching. Okay, so that's what you need to look out for as well. Also, when it comes to the bobbin, so it's how you thread the bobbin. Okay, so accidentally during sewing you might accidentally thread your bobbin in the wrong way. Okay, so how I do it, so I'm going to work on the top loader first. Make sure as well that you're using the correct bobbin for your sewing machine, because sometimes people, we inherit bobbins, and but that bobbin size might not be the right size for your sewing machine. Now in top loaders you don't use metal bobbins, only plastic bobbins. Okay, now if I'm going to pop this bobbin in, now I do it with a toilet roll over the top, that's how I remember. Okay, so toilet roll over the top, you might not have it like that, but I do. So toilet roll over the top, and what I'm going to do, turn it on its side, and I'm going to pop that bobbin in. Now I'm just going to bring the machine a little bit closer and bend this down. I'm going to turn the light on now, so hopefully you will see. Now what we've got to do is we've now got to bring up our bobbin thread, so you're holding on to the needle thread. Now can you see as I bring this up now, that's quite interesting, I wanted that to happen. Okay, I didn't do that on purpose. Now it hasn't done what I wanted it to do. You think that this has been pulled up, but it actually hasn't. It hasn't been, the bobbin hasn't set in. So I've got to redo that again. You're going to see the problem. Perfect timing, Amanda, perfect timing. So pop that in again, click, do it again. So down. So we're pulling that bobbin thread up, and I'm going to grab the loop. Now you can see the difference. Now when I pull that through, can you see, if I lean that forward there, can you see that there is a thread across the top of the bobbin there? Now if I turn the light out, I don't think you're going to see it. No, you definitely need the light. So I think you can just about see that the colour pink thread is across that bobbin there. Now that's what you've always got to see during your sewing. You've always got to see that thread across the top of the bobbin. Again, you could have been sewing for a long time and all of a sudden Paul Daniels comes in and he unhooks that. And again, that could be the cause of the looping with your stitching. Now you've got this little window here if you've got a top loader machine, and that is for you to see that you can see that that thread is across the top of your bobbin. And if you're using black thread or a darker thread, it's not so visual. So just keep an eye every time. It's just an automatic thing that you do, is look in that window and see your thread is across that bobbin. Okay. Now, if you have a front loader, which is like my bet here, now you, after a period of sewing, I'm going to take this bobbin out because I want to use it for this next bit. After a period of sewing, your bobbin case, and I have to do it with mine, that it comes loose. So I'm just going to turn that off there so you can see it better. So again, I'm going to do toilet roll over the top, and I'm going to pop that in my case, and you have to click it. Now I'm going to stop talking just so you can hear this click. There, did you hear it click? There, now that is my tension. Now you should be able to have the tension like this. Now if it's really falling like that, like a spider down a web, then that isn't the correct tension, and there's a little screw there on your bobbin holder there which you tighten. to tighten the tension of your bobbin case, okay? And that's what you need to look out for when you have a front loader, all right? So there are some guides for you to hopefully stop that horrible machining. A little tip as well, where you have what they call the bird's nest there. Can you see that horrible amount of stitching that's caught up? Now, what happens there is when people pop their fabric underneath the foot of their machine, the oval part of the foot, there's an oval clear bit that you can see through. They don't cover that with the fabric. And the tails of the thread behind the sewing machine, you have to hold on to those to be able to take the fabric through. You just keep it taut, and that's what will stop the birds nesting. So you don't want any birds nesting on your fabric, ladies. So that will stop that little problem, okay? Make sure that this fabric is far enough under your foot to help those feed dogs take it through, to take it through the machine. Because you're working as a team. Both you and the machine are working as a team to make the finished product that you would like to keep or give as a gift. So hopefully that will help you, and good luck and go forth.